What's going on, guys? It's Masai here, and today I'm going to show you guys how to build out an AI agent that can connect into your case management system. This AI agent is going to be able to have access to different tools. So I'm going to show you how to turn your internal processes into workflows, and then I'm going to show you how to connect those workflows into your AI agent so you can just speak English to your agent and it will just go off and do work for you. This video is probably going to be a longer video, but it's going to give you the foundations to basically automate anything in a law firm. It's going to show you how to manage context, to take context from different places. It's going to show you how to manage templated documents, and it's going to show you how to be able to actually execute your workflows just using natural language. Without further ado, let's get right into the demo. Okay, so we're here in Clio. We have a couple of documents relevant to a certain matter for a client. If we come in here and we look at these documents, we have an intake form, we have a call transcript of a transcribed call. What I'm going to show you how to do now is how to build out an agent that can read those files in Clio, give you a summary of what's going on in the case, and also generate an engagement letter. I'll also show you how you can not just use the create engagement letter tool, but how you can build out essentially any tool to do any action within the case management system. So if I show you now the agent that can access Clio and that can perform these actions and that we can talk to is based out of Slack. So if I come to Slack and I add the document generation agent, I can ask it, give me a refresher on what's going on with Joe Smith. So I'll send that over. If I come back here into the workflow, I'll see an execution trigger. So this execution is triggering now. It's going to go and it's going to grab the information about Joe Smith and it's going to respond to me in the chat as well and let me know what's going on. And so you can see here we have the summary of Joe Smith's case, the initial intake, the matter type, key issues, current status, next step. It can grab these documents from Clio, it can read them, and it can give us back the information here in Slack. If we come into Joe Smith right now, into documents, we have a couple of documents here for the matter, but we don't have any engagement letter yet for Joe Smith. And so what we can do is we can actually ask our agent in Slack to create that engagement letter for us. So can you generate an engagement letter for Joe Smith and put it in his Clio folder? And then again, this will activate our workflow and innate in. Our agent will use the tool that we have to create the engagement letter. We'll go off, create that engagement letter for us, and then actually upload that engagement letter into Clio. So now we see this response coming back. The engagement letter has been written. Do you want me to store it in Clio? I'll approve that. Then it will go and actually upload the engagement letter into Clio. And then we get this final message here. I have generated the engagement letter for Joe Smith and saved it to his Clio folder. If I come into the Joe Smith folder, I can see that we just have an engagement letter that just came in. And if I open this up, I can see the engagement letter here. So there we go. We have all the variables being filled out in our template. We have the entire engagement letter set up and ready to go. All of these different fields are being filled out. And then from here, I'm going to show you guys how you can actually build out automations like this, how you can make any little tweaks or corrections you want to make in terms of the fonts or, for example, formatting here, all this kind of stuff. We can make the changes to fix those. But this is essentially what you can build an agent out to do, and you can build it out to automate any document that you want created for any person in a case management system like Clio. Let me now go in and show you how to actually build this thing out. Okay, so the concepts that we're going to learn in this video will allow you to basically automate anything. So what we're going to be building out today is an AI agent, and there's a few different components of an AI agent that are important to understand before we actually build this thing out. And so I'm just going to cover those really quickly. So with an AI agent, you have the agent itself, the robot, right? And it has a few different components. So we have memory. So memory, I'll put an M here for memory. We have memory. We have the model. So let's go this will be memory. Memory, this is going to be the model, which is going to be the language model, which is the brain behind our AI agent. Then we also have arrow. We also have tools So tool, we have tools as well, and then there's a system prompt which goes into the agent. So here we have the prompt as well. And this is what's going to govern the agent's behavior. So prompt, the prompt goes into the agent, and then the model processes the prompt to determine how it's going to behave. The tools are the things that give our agent access to outside platforms and let them actually do real work and also get data so they can be informed about the context necessary to execute whatever task they need to execute. And then memory allows the agent to learn from things that it's done in the past and to maintain that a coherent understanding of whatever process it's working on. So these are the main important parts of an agent. You're going to see them actually in practice as we build this thing out in 8.10. But these are the core components. You have memory, you have the language model, you have the tools for the model, and then you have the prompt. This is essentially what comprises an AI agent. So in order to kick off the build, we're going to need to set up a couple of credentials. Starting with Slack, which we're going to use to interface with our agent. Then we're going to need a database setup. We're going to have two different language models in here, OpenAI and Gemini. And then we have a couple of custom tools that allow us to deal with Word documents. Obviously, if you're a lawyer, you know how much trouble Word documents are and how difficult formatting is with those tools. And so we have two custom tools that are going to help us with that. And so starting off with the Slack trigger, you want to go to api.slack.com/apps. We're going to create a new app from scratch. Select the workspace. We'll put YouTube demo app here, and then we'll go ahead and create the app. If we come into N8N and we open our Slack trigger and we come to create a new credential, we want to create an access token for our bot. Basically, we want to take whatever message we're giving to our bot in Slack and be able to pass that into our app in N8N. And so we need to generate this access token here. All right, so for Slack, to actually create this credential, the first thing that we're going to do is actually go over to Slack itself, and we're going to create a new channel. So in Slack, if you come to channels and you click create channel, YouTube AI agent, and then I'll go ahead and set it to public and select create. So now I have a new channel where I can talk to my AI agent in Slack. Then from here, what we'll do is we'll come back over to N8N and we're going to go and grab this access token so we can paste this here and connect our Slack account into N8N. So in order to do that, we're going to come over to api.slack.com/apps. You'll create a new app. You'll select from scratch. You'll add a name to the app and you'll select the workspace for the app. Once you've done that, you'll see a screen that looks something like this. Basically, you'll have these features over here on the left-hand side, and then you'll have whatever section you're in will be here in the middle. What we want to do to start off is we want to go to the features section and we want to come down to OAuth and permissions. And what we need to be able to do is generate this bot token. So when you first come here, you won't see this bot token. I'm going to show you how to generate it now. So the first thing that we'll do in order to be able to generate this is to come into the scope section, and then you're going to add all of these scopes here. So in order to add a scope, you'll come to add an OAuth scope and you'll just select the scope that you need. These are all the permissions that the Slack agent is going to be able to read things in Slack and to take actions. And feel free to pause the video here and look at all these different actions and go ahead and just copy all these actions so you can have them on your end in Slack. Then from here, once you have these scopes, you'll come up here and you'll click install. Mine has already been installed, but you'll see install to whatever your workspace name is, and you'll install it there in that workspace. Then you'll copy this token, and then you'll come back over to N8N and you'll paste that access token and click save. That will test, and then the connection has been successfully made. Now, a couple more things we have to do is we have to set up the webhook, or one other thing we have to do is set up this webhook. This is going to be the URL that allows us to immediately trigger actions to happen whenever we send a message in Slack. So we have to copy this webhook. We'll come back to the app and we'll come down to event subscriptions right below OAuth and permissions. And we're going to go ahead and enable events here. Then for the request URL, we're just going to paste the URL that we just grabbed. Now, what we need to do here, if we get this error, is we need to make sure that our workflow is active and is updated with our Slack agent. So what we'll do here is come into channel to watch, select the channel that we just created. We can save this, and then we're going to go ahead and publish our workflow. And note that the change here is added new Slack trigger node. Go ahead and publish that. Now we have the Slack trigger, and it should be able to reach the Slack trigger now. So if I retry this, there we go. Now we see it's been verified. Now we're going to go ahead and choose some events for the bot to subscribe to. These are just all the things that are going to trigger our bot to actually run the workflow. So we're going to go here and add a new bot user event. And we're just going to select the first one, which is the app mention. So whenever we mention our bot's name, that's going to trigger the bot. So once we have that, we can go ahead and click Save Changes. And that is the setup for the Slack bot. And in order to test that it's set up, we can come over to Slack in our new channel that we've created. And I should be able to add the YouTube demo app. And then I can add it to the channel. And so now if I do this YouTube demo app and I say hi, for example, nothing's going to happen. But if we come over to N8N and I come to executions, I can see that just now we have an execution coming in with the Slack trigger, which is our message here saying hi, right? So now we have that trigger set up, which we're later going to connect to our AI agent to be able to do actions for us in Slack. So that's the Slack trigger setup, or the Slack credential setup. The next setup that we're going to need is an SQL setup, or a Postgres setup. So this is going to be our database where we're going to store our chat memories. And so if I show you guys what that looks like, what we need to be able to do to give our AI agent memory is to store the chat history somewhere. And in order to do that, we're going to have a database where we're going to store all of our chats here, right? So we have a human chat. I need you to generate an engagement letter, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have the AI chat as well, where it tells us what it's doing and then it tells us whether it's been successful or not. But we need to be able to store this conversation. And in order to do that, we're going to set up a connection to a database, which is Supabase. And that is where we are going to store all of our chat or message history. So in order to do that, we'll come to N8N. We can do it here in this node. We can also do this as well. So if you guys go ahead and in the description of this video, there will be a link that you can follow to get the JSON for this whole workflow, meaning that you can download that file and you can literally copy and paste the entire workflow here, and you'll have all these nodes set up for you. And you'll just have to go in step by step and connect these different nodes to your accounts in these platforms. So what we can do here with the AI agent is we can come to this memory node here. And in order to set this up, you'll come in, create a credential, and all of these values are going to come from Supabase. So now we'll go ahead and set up our database, which is going to store all the chat memory that we have with our agent so that it can learn from our previous conversations. To do that, you're just going to go to supabase.com. You'll create an account, and you can use the free account for this. And then you'll come into your organization and you'll click New Project. You'll give your project a name and you'll give it a database password as well. Select the region that you're in. If you're in Europe, use a European server. If you're in the US, then you can use an American server. If Canada, that whole deal. And you'll go ahead and create the project. Now, when you create the project, you're going to see an interface that looks something like this. With chat memory stuff, you don't actually have to create a database because that database is going to be automatically created in N8N for you. So all we have to do right now is just connect our N8N app into our Postgres database. In order to do that, we're going to use this connect button here at the top of the screen. Go ahead and click connect. And then for the method, we're going to select transaction pooler. Then we can go ahead and open up the parameters, and all these parameters here are the parameters that we're going to use to connect our Postgres account into N8N. Now, make sure you remember the password that you set from your database or for your database from earlier, because you're going to need that as well to complete this connection. And so what we'll do for this is we can just come into the Postgres node. We will open up the credentials, create a new credential, and then we'll just fill out all these values using the connect in Supabase. So for the host, we'll go ahead and copy and paste the host over. The database is going to be Postgres. We can copy the port as well and put that in the port section. And then we'll copy the user as well. And then you're going to want to copy and paste your password in here to complete this connection. Once you click save, the connection will test, and then you'll have your Postgres connection set up. And that is the connection that we're going to use to store our chat memories. Now, a couple more things that we're going to need for this: our OpenAI API key. So you're going to need a ChatGPT account, and then we'll come to OpenAI, platform.openai.com. You'll sign into your account. And then once you've signed into your account, you'll come to your dashboard. And then you'll come to the manage section into the API key section. From here, you're just going to create a new API key, and you're going to go ahead and save that API key. And you'll come into a ChatGPT node, which we'll have here for you to set up the credential. You're going to go ahead and create a new credential, and all you have to do is paste that API key in here. The connection will test, and you'll have access to your OpenAI account in n8n. So in order to get the Gemini API keys, you're going to go to ai.studio or aistudio.google.com/app/API keys. And then same deal here. We're going to create an API key, give it a name, and it's going to give you back an API key, that long alphanumeric string that we're going to use to authenticate our Google Gemini LLM in our workflow. And from here, we can open up the Google Gemini node. We can come into create a new credential, and then you're just going to paste that API key in here, and that will connect your Google Gemini account. And then lastly, the last two things that, again, this is super important for lawyers if you're doing any type of automation or AI work, is formatting things. So dealing with Word documents. So we have two nodes here that are going to help us to do that. Word to text is going to help us extract text out of Word documents. And then docxtemplator is going to help us actually create or generate Word documents. And the way to do that is you're going to need n8n to be self-hosted. And then you'll come down to the settings button in the bottom left. And then there's this community nodes, option. You're going to go ahead and click on that. And then I have these nodes installed already, but what you'll want to do is just copy exactly what you see here, n8n-nodes-docxtemplator. And then when you go into install, you're going to use that in order to install that package. So you'll do that for n8n nodes.docxtemplator, and you'll also do the same thing for n8n nodes-word to text. And you'll install both of those packages, and that will allow you to use those two tools in your workflows to be able to manipulate Word documents. And those are basically all the credentials we need set up. You also need a Clio credential. I have a previous video on how to set up a Clio app credential. If you haven't seen that video, I'll leave it in the description for you guys as well. And then once you have all these credentials set up, we can go ahead and start actually building out the tools that our agent is going to be able to use to do these different actions. So now we're going to get into the meat of this build. What you're looking at here is exactly what I showed you earlier, where we have an AI agent, where that AI agent has a couple of tools that allow it to perform actions. It has memory that we set up just now in Supabase in Postgres that allows it to remember previous conversations we've had. And we have the chat model here where we're using Google Gemini. You could use any other chat model you wanted to. And obviously some law firms will be interested in local AI setups. So all you have to do to bring a local AI model in here is use an Ollama node instead of a Google Gemini node if you have a local language model. So if you want to use a local model, you can connect Ollama in here, and then you can use Ollama models as your models instead of Google Gemini models. But that's the basic foundation of an AI agent: a model, memory, and tools that allow it to take actions, along with our system prompt here, which gives our agent explicit instructions as to how it should act and what tools it should use and how it should format its output. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually build out the tools. And this is really important because this is how you automate basically anything, is you build out these workflows that will run deterministically. And then you tell our agent, or we allow our agent to figure out when to call these workflows. And so we have a few different workflows here that I'm going to show you in a second, where we have a workflow to get the Clio contact ID for each contact in Clio. We have a workflow to return the recent documents from each Clio contact. And then we have a workflow to actually create an engagement letter. And I'm going to walk you through each of those tools now. So these are the three tools we have here. We have a tool to get recent documents. We have a tool to get the Clio contact ID. And then we have the actual automation that generates the engagement letter. And what you'll see is all these tools start with a webhook, which just means that we give our agent an endpoint here that is going to be able to call in order to trigger these workflows to run. So if we start off with the getting Clio contact ID workflow, we have a webhook here, which obviously you can just grab by just getting a webhook over here on the right-hand side. And that webhook endpoint is the same endpoint that's in our AI agent here. So find Clio contact ID, this endpoint is the same endpoint as this endpoint. So whenever we tell it to get a contact ID for a certain contact, it's going to run this workflow. We have a first step here, which is getting all the contacts. So once you have your Clio credential set up, which again, I have a video in the description, which will show you how to do that. Once you have that credential set up, we're going to use that credential in here to get the contact, to get all the IDs of all our contacts. So in order to do that, we have this endpoint here, which is the contacts endpoint with Clio, and that allows us to list all of the information about all the contacts we have in Clio. So if I execute this step, we'll see here, I just have one contact in here at the moment, but we have a name here, we have the ID of the contact is here, and then the type of the contact and all this stuff, right? So we're getting all of the information from all of our contacts. And then what we need to do from here is be able to match whatever information. For example, if I ask the, actually, let me show you guys. When I come into my AI agent and I say at document generation agent, what is the ID for Joe Smith? So now our agent gives us back the ID for Joe Smith. And because it's called the tool and it's given us the answer of the correct ID for Joe Smith, right? And if I come into that execution, I can see here that my message comes in. What is the ID for Joe Smith? It goes into the AI agent. And then the AI agent figures out, okay, he wants the ID for this person. I need to use the tool that allows me to get IDs. And so what it does is it triggers this tool here to find the contact ID, and it gets back the response, which is the ID of the contact. And so if I go to the actual execution that was run in our tool here, so we want to look at a few things here. What we want to look at is what the AI agent actually sent over to this workflow in order to be able to run it. Basically, what our AI agent is going to do is our AI agent is going to fill this value here for a variable name. And it's going to figure out what name we're looking for based on the question we ask it. And it's going to pass that value for that variable name into our workflow. So when we open this up, we'll see that in the body section here of what the AI agent passed over, we have this name for the contact that it's looking for. And then we then reference that name all throughout our workflow in order to be able to find the ID. So first thing we do is grab all the contacts we have in Clio. Then we have a little bit of JavaScript in here to find the matching name. So we want to match the name based on the name that our AI agent has given to the workflow. We're matching that to the matching name in our Clio essentially database. Then from there, we're getting just one output for the matching name. Then from here, we're just doing a sort of validation check, making sure that there's actually something there, that there was a matching name. If there's not, we have an error message that goes back and says there's no contact named whatever that contact name is. And that will let our agent know that the person that we're looking for doesn't exist in Clio. But if it succeeds, then we get this response back to our AI agent, where our AI agent gets all this data about the specific context we asked about, and it can easily be able to look at this data and respond to us and let us know what we see here, that the ID for Joe Smith is the following ID. So that's a breakdown of the most basic tool, which is just getting the ID. But once we have the ability to get the ID, we can do much more complex stuff with this. So now if I want to get a summary of the recent of what's going on in Joe Smith's case, for example, right? We know that our agent can get the contact ID, and from there, we know that it can also grab the recent document. So if I come over to my agent again and I ask it, what's going on in Joe Smith's case? Can you give me a summary? So as soon as I ask that question, we're going to have a workflow trigger here. And when I look at this workflow, I can see what tools my AI agent used to be able to answer my question. And so I see it used the tool to find Joe Smith's ID, and it also used a second tool, which is returning the text from the recent documents relating to Joe Smith. So now it has the correct context about Joe Smith's case to be able to answer my question. So if I come back to Slack now, I can see a summary of Joe Smith's case. So we have the initial consultation was held, matter details, primary issues, etc., etc. So now what I'll do is walk you through the actual tool here that we're using to run this workflow to get recent documents. So what we have here is the webhook again, which is the same endpoint that our AI agent is going to call. So the same way that we would run this workflow ourselves in N8N is the same way our AI agent can run this workflow now. The important thing that our AI agent is passing in here is the contact ID, which is what it's getting from the first tool. So once it calls this tool and it gets the contact ID back, it can then pass that into the second tool. If you see here, we have this contact ID value that is being generated by the model once it gets it back from the first tool. And then it's able to get all this text from the recent documents in Joe Smith's case. And it's able to analyze this text and figure out what's going on in that case, right? So this is sort of the foundations. These are the foundations of context engineering, which is what makes AI agents really useful and powerful in any use case. So we have this here, we have this contact ID that's set up, and it passes that into our workflow. Then from here, we're just setting a variable here to normalize the contact ID. We're making sure the contact ID is not empty. So if we have a contact ID, we're going to go through and get all of our context. We're going to do the same thing that we did before in the Clio contact ID tool, which is matching the name variable. So we're getting all of our contacts from Clio, and then we're matching the name of the contact that was passed into this workflow, which is this one here, which is the ID here that's passed in. We're matching that ID with the ID in whichever ID we have that matches in Clio. So we're finding the ID in Clio that matches the ID that we've passed into our workflow. Then from here, we'll get the output of whoever matches that ID. Then moving on, we have the same sort of logic here. If there's no matching name, we have an error message here saying that there's no contact that matches that name. But if there is a matching name, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get all of the documents that are relevant to that ID. So what we're doing here is we're using Clio's document endpoint, and then we are using one of the parameters which allows us to filter documents that are associated with a certain contact ID here. So we're only grabbing the documents relevant to the contact ID of Joe Smith. And we have all these documents here. These are the 3 documents that pertain to Joe Smith. We're going to split those documents out, get the location of those documents, and then we'll actually download the documents themselves. So all of these are going to be set up for you guys. You're just going to have to make sure you have your credentials set up in here, which again, there's a YouTube video that I have in the description, which will show you how to do that, how to set up your Clio credential. Now from here, we're going to have different types of documents. So some of our documents are going to be PDF documents. Some may be .docs documents, right? So this is the hard part of working in law firms, is that you have a lot of Word documents that are difficult to deal with programmatically, but we have a solution for that here in this workflow. So we have this switch node, which is going to identify which document is a PDF document and which documents are Word documents. And there's different logic to handle the 2 of those. So for the PDF documents, we have a simple extract from PDF node. Then for Word documents, we have our useful Word to text node that we installed as a custom node or as a community node. And both of these are going to extract the text from the different files. and give us a final output with all the text. So we have the initial consultation call transcript, and we have the other documents that we have as well. So we have the intake form here as well, and we have a sample engagement letter here as well. And then we aggregate all that information, and that final output gets passed back to our AI agent, which it can then use to give us a summary of what's going on with the case or answer specific questions about what's going on in that case. Now, lastly, the most powerful tool, which I'll show you guys again, we have our engagement letter automation. And our engagement letter automation is bringing all this together. So when we want to go through and generate an engagement letter, I can say here to my agent at document generation agent, please generate an engagement letter for Joe Smith. Then we'll see this workflow will start running in N8N. So we'll see that workflow is running now here. And then once it's finished, it will create an engagement letter that we'll be able to see in Clio. So it will give us this notification once it's written the engagement letter. We'll let it know that it's okay to go ahead and store that engagement letter in Clio. We'll approve that action. It'll upload to Clio, and then it'll let us know that it has been saved to a Joe Smith folder in Clio. So we have that generated engagement letter stored in Joe Smith's folder in Clio. Once the engagement letter has been written and uploaded to the folder, after a couple minutes, we can come into the folder and we can see this engagement letter here under the contact of Mr. Joe Smith. We can open this up and see the formatted engagement letter. It has my name in here, Joe Smith, and then we have also basically the summary of the matter of everything that's going on, right? And what I'll do now is go through and show you guys how to actually create or use your templates in here, because I'll show you how this workflow actually works. Okay, so we can see here that when we told it to generate that engagement letter, it first called the Clio contact ID tool to get the ID of the contact, which it has here. And then it used that ID to call our create engagement letter tool. And it's gone off and created that engagement letter for us. So here's how the engagement letter tool works. What we're gonna get from the agent is the contact ID and the contact name here, right? Then what we're gonna do first is actually execute a sub workflow that's present in this workflow. So the first thing that we do in our engagement letter automation is we execute our get recent documents automation. So that way we get the recent documents relevant to the contact or the client. And once we have the recent documents coming back from our first automation that we're running, we set those to a variable here, which are the recent documents here related to the client. We're then passing in those recent documents to an LLM chain where we have an AI, not an AI agent, but an AI model in here that's going to read these documents and is going to give us these different variables here. So we have the date that's given us, attorney, client, law office, the summary of the matter, scope of representation, and the engagement estimate, all these different things, right? That we're going to need to fill that specific document. And here's how you can start to understand how you can basically automate all of your documents. What you do is you set variables for all the things that need to be filled out in those documents. And then you can have an AI step, which you tell it step by step what it should fill in each of those fields. And you give it the context to be able to fill all those variables. And so at the end of this, we get this nice JSON output where we have all of the different values and variables that we're going to need in our document. And we output that JSON. Then what we're doing here is we're grabbing a template. What Clio allows you to do is store these document templates. And what we have here is an engagement letter template. And all we've done is gone through here and set these different variables here for all of these different values that we're going to define using our AI agent. So law office, matter summary, scope of representation, etc., etc. Even when you see in some of these places where we have the double dollar signs, all you have to do is just delete this, save it, re-upload it to Clio, and then you won't have that problem anymore, right? But what we're doing is just going through and writing a variable in all the places that we need certain information filled out that's going to be different from client to client. And you can keep the same structure of the boilerplate of your initial documents and just have all these variables in here that you're going to fill using your automation. So what we're doing in the next step is we're grabbing that template from Clio and we're using the templates endpoint. So we have the document underscore templates, then we have the ID of the template, and then we're downloading that template. We have this configuration will be already set up for you guys. So when you download this, you're already going to have this configuration set up, but we have to do something a little bit tricky to actually be able to download documents from Clio, because we have to follow a redirect. But we have this response headers and status turned on, never error is turned on, and response format is turned on to auto detect. And then from here, we're getting the location of the file. From there, we can actually download the file. And then we use our next custom community node, which is the docx templater node, which allows us to pass in a docs file template and the JSON of the values that we want to fill. So this is the JSON here from the earlier step, which is the LLM chain here, and allows us to combine those two things into a file. And then all we're doing from there is we're taking that file, we're uploading it to Clio here. We're also at the same time letting the user know in Slack that the engagement letter has been written, and we're waiting for approval about whether or not to actually upload that engagement letter into Clio or not. Once we get approval, we just go through, we get the contact's information, which we're using the value for the ID of the contact to get that contact's folder information. And then we're going to go ahead and post that document there and add it to that contact in Clio. So those are the tools, those are the agents. That is effectively how you can build out workflows that your AI agent can call at any time to be able to do actual work for you in your case management system and actually help you get real gains from AI as a law firm. So that's sort of how you do it. You can build out a tool like this for basically any legal software platform that has an open API, and you can start to map all your processes into workflows, and then you can just talk to AI agents and have them run these workflows for you. So that is AI agents, the basics of AI agents, and how to use them in your law firm, how to connect them to different case management systems. This is a workflow or step-by-step process that you can take to build any workflow to automate basically almost anything in your law firm. You just figure out what the workflow is step by step, what platforms you're going to need access to, what tools and information is this agent going to need access to in order to be successful, and then you connect those to the agent, and you can just speak in natural language in order to have the agent actually do those actions for you. If you're looking for help building out an agent like this, AI agents, automations, and you are a small law firm and you need help with that, there's a link in the description you can click to book a call, and I can see if I can help you out. That's pretty much everything for this video. If you liked it, leave a like, comment, let me know what other kind of videos you guys want to see. If you guys have any trouble or get stuck with anything, just drop a comment. I'll try to get to all of them. Definitely subscribe, because we're going to go through some really crazy stuff this year. I'm going to show you guys how to do things that are going to look like magic basically in your law firm. So definitely subscribe and stick around. Turn on post notifications so you can watch those videos. And that's pretty much it. Thank you guys a ton for watching. As always, all of the templates are available for free in the description. So just go to Gumroad, go to the template. You can put $0 for the template and get the template for free. Exactly the same template that I showed you in this video. You can use that yourself for your own law firm. So that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day.